Episode 298 of the TV Dudes, recorded September 2nd, 2020. Pure Evil. Well, whether it is a haunted house in Lovecraft Country on HBO, the quintessential devil helping the LAPD out in Lucifer on Netflix, or the all-too-real evil of the sex cult in Vow on HBO, this week we are talking about pure evil. And when you talk about pure evil, you gotta have our old pal Grant Davis back.
Really? That's a weird introduction.
What a segue!
Are you not doing evil?
Episode title for you, buddy.
Are you not doing evil now, Grant? I thought you were off doing evil. Is that not what you've been doing?
I was just realizing, I was like, man, now I'm part of pure evil.
You're back! Before we get to all that, I am Randy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Les.
And yeah, I'm Grant.
And we're the TV Dudes. And we're closing on episode 300 here, and glad to have Grant back for at least an episode or a few, or maybe the big 300th. We haven't decided if he's going to be able to get there or not, but hopefully.
I mean, we just got to make it something I can watch. I feel like I already
retrospective, or we haven't really brainstormed ideas yet.
Well, we do have that anime and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode with some wrestling.
Right, that is coming up.
It's going to be a good one.
No. I committed to being able to do the homework for this, and I still failed to watch it.
I mean, it's AEW, though. It's not like we're making you watch that NXT bullshit.
Oh, man.
I have picked up just enough jargon in wrestling to be dangerous this week.
I did not know what that means.
Yeah.
Someone at home did, and they're like, what?
Yeah, Grant, since you left, the whole place has gone right to hell. We are now strictly talking about anime, wrestling, and occasionally Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or at least, if our patrons were talking, that's what our patrons would be making us watch.
Yes.
I noticed something was off. Like, I left, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic? What'd you guys do?
Real Rob
I meant to ask you about that button. It said "Do not push," but I thought that was a joke.
Yep, nope, this is for real.
We should not have had that
light
button.
Started blinking as soon as you left. It's been blinking the whole time. We're not sure what that means.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think you guys should have installed the pandemic button because, of course, we were going to push it.
Please turn it off before November 3rd.
No, but it's stuck now. It's like on the video game where you're trying to like get the thing to pop back up in the housing.
Oh boy,
it's stuck down.
This is forever hell. We're in pure evil. This is what we get.
See, that's fitting.
Pure
it's fitting. So yeah, we got lots of pure evil shows to talk about. But before we talk about the shows for the week, it is time for the Power Rankings.
We ask that ultimate respite of evil, the internet, what shows matter and what don't.
Guys, the internet is an evil place, all right? And there's no deeper pit of despair than the bottomless hellholes known as IMDb, Metacritic, and Rotten Tomato. Each week, we crawl through the putrid shit to see how the internet judges the shows we talk about on the podcast. Will our shows from last week walk through the pearly gates, or will they jump the turnstiles of hell? These are Power Rankings. So last week, we had 3 shows. Nothing too exciting. The Dead Pixels over on the CW, which is kind of like the mismatched British video game comedy. Technically got a high score of 100, but being 100 on our list is actually pretty shitty. It's also kind of new. It doesn't have both of its Metacritic scores yet, so that may go up over time, but right now it's in number 100 out of, what are we up to now? 119 shows for the year, including marble races. in dead last, unfortunately.
People liked this better than Lower Decks, which I'm not saying Lower Decks is my favorite thing ever, but what in the living shit? Like, also, it didn't beat 30 Rock's special by nearly enough. How is anything below 30 Rock's special? But,
the internet
is
a weird place.
I love Lower Decks.
It's got to be better than Dead Pixels. It is definitely better than Dead Pixels.
Did you get the list, Grant?
I see. Yeah.
So the trick with this, Grant, is we've discovered that the internet hates things that we love and loves things we hate.
Why do you think the world is the way the world is, Randy?
It's because I pushed that button.
Because you pushed the button, and that's why. Oh wait, The Last Dance is the number one though, and that show was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, it was. That's what they love. They love sports, wrestling, and Rick and Morty, which I feel is equal representation.
And as we've discovered, I think Star Wars fans like stuff about Star Wars more than Star Wars, because the Mandalorian documentary drastically outranks the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Or actually, Mandalorian season 1 isn't on this list, so
that's why.
Those numbers. But these numbers have been out of the park ever since it aired.
But the Mandalorian will be on this list starting in October 30th.
Ooh, Mandalorian versus Mandalorian documentary. Who will come out alive?
God, I hope the Mandalorian outranks it.
Or the list is truly broken. Something else that's kind of in a broken spot, possibly due to it not having any Metacritic rating, is the Netflix Carolyn Tuesday. The anime that we watched on Patreon. It's in our number 91 spot, but I think it should be much higher. I was
much higher.
Such a
fantastic show.
It got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, though, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I don't like that Kill la Kill is way above it.
I also don't like that.
I don't know. I was kind of on to Kill la Kill. I could get down with some of that.
Carolyn Tuesday's far better.
Yes.
Yeah, no, a million times. And the music
Tales
alone,
from the
it's
Loop.
like,
What
I'm
is
still
wrong
listening
with people?
to it. What is wrong with the internet?
Bothered.
Well, this one I feel like is a little, slightly better news. What I think is a really great show on what could be a really great streaming network, Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet over on Apple Plus, is in the number 30 spot in a 4-way tie with the Peacock special Psych 2 Lassie Come Home, Doom Patrol Season 2 over on DC Universe / HBO Max / CW. It's getting confusing, guys. And then Evil over on CBS
that's fitting.
Matching scores. Yeah. We should talk about that show tonight.
That's right.
I really think that little upstart streaming network that Mythic Quest is on, they could do something.
Yeah,
they get some money behind them,
some backing, some kind of money, or some kind of media influence or reach of some kind.
Right? They could just be in,
If only they had a business daddy that could send them 40 iPhones and 20 earbuds next day air, so
right?
They could film an episode.
Here, quarantine the shit out of yourselves.
Yeah.
Go.
We empower people with lots of money worth of stuff. Stuff worth lots of money. Actually, that's
Amazon
all we had
Prime
last
could
week.
get all
That
of
was
that
new
stuff
on the
there,
list.
too.
We had talked about Teenage Bounty Hunters before. That's in the... It's actually tied for number 36 with Lovecraft Country, which we've also talked about.
Both of which should be way higher.
Yeah, it should be way higher. That's top 10 material for sure.
Yeah.
But man, the top 10's kind of weird. Grant, just I know you've been peeking, but recap everybody with what you've been looking at. Number 1 right now is The Last Dance. Number 2, Dark Side of the Ring, the wrestling documentary,
which is
Vice.
So weird.
Number
Why do people
3
like sports?
Is Rick and Morty, season 4 on Adult Swim.
That's so old.
Yeah. Number 4 is The Mandalorian documentary. Not the actual show, but the documentary about the show. Then we got Better Call Saul at number 5. That's like prestige TV.
Yep.
BoJack Horseman, number 6. I think also valid in that spot. Then tied for 7 is Young Justice and What We Do in the Shadows, which What We Do in the Shadows is on my top 10 probably for sure.
Me too.
I haven't watched too much Young Justice. Is that like the final season 3?
No, they're going to do more.
they're
The
still
internet
going
just loves animation. They just
Yep. And the internet fought for this to come back and will never admit that they are tired of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
They didn't love Solar Opposites, though. Solar Opposites is way down the list.
It's so weird.
Yeah, I like that. And number 10's a three-way tie for Brockmire last week tonight and The Good Place.
Oh, Brockmire would love a three-way tie.
No, it's
Why is
Mr. In Between
Brockmire a
Brockmire
thing?
and last week tonight. Sorry, Good Place is right below it.
So Brockmire's actually really good. It's one of those things that we discovered because Les put us onto it, I think.
It's like the opposite of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly right. It's bizarre. Ted Lasso.
Crossover. That would be the best. Grant, have you watched Ted Lasso yet?
No.
Totally
it's good.
worth it. Worth the subscription.
I
Yeah,
haven't
it's-
even seen Better Call Saul's latest season yet because I went to AMC a little bit late and they sucked away their first episode while the other one's running in the season. And I was like, well, what the fuck? Where do I get that then? And then I was so frustrated. I was like, well, fuck you, AMC. I'm never going to watch your fucking show. You know, I really want to. I'm going to go bootleg it eventually. But I was just really annoyed and I never went around and caught up.
Yeah, Better Call Saul is one of the few shows I still buy. I bought it on Amazon and bought the season pass, and then finally got around to watching it. And I'm like, I probably could have waited for Netflix to put this on now. I mean, it's really good, but it's not must-watch for me anymore. It's not like that I had to watch it once week to week like Lovecraft Country has become.
That is insane. That is
You know-
insane.
I love that we can
What?
talk smack about AMC. I feel like we can only do that because FX exists. If there was no FX, it'd be kind of hard for me to be like, screw you, AMC. I don't need Madman after season 5. I'm done with this.
I
But it's
just
like,
don't
if there was no
understand,
FX,
Randy,
we'd have no
how you
prestige.
wouldn't watch Better Call Saul as must-see TV.
I
What
don't know,
has changed in the world?
Don't get me wrong. I loved it when I watched it, but there was so much else that was catching my attention, and I was like, I'll get to it eventually.
But you always put that as at least your top 3 shows every year.
I know it's kind of fallen in my estimation a little bit. And it's not that it's gotten worse; it's just that there's so much good TV right now. So
You know what? While you guys have been watching all these shows, I watched The Office probably for the billionth time, all the way through, and I saw Bob Odenkirk was close to being Michael Scott.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the guy, and
Yeah.
they got Steve Carell last minute. And I watched the audition, and I watched the episode where he does pop up as the other Michael Scott, and I was just like, ugh, that would not have been good. That wouldn't have been the same show at all.
those auditions that they show of people who almost were in it. I forget who all it is, but it's famous people who you're like, oh man,
Seth
thank
Rogen.
God they didn't get it.
Right, it's just dodging bullet after bullet.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been good for those people, and it would have been good for the show. It would have been like giving the show over to Ed Helms in the season 6 or whatever they did.
Fucking Ed Helms, man.
And I like Ed Helms. That guy was not the guy to run The Office.
Do we like Ed Helms?
I like Ed Helms. He's not.
Kate Blanchett, is she pretty or is she just tall?
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you, Kyle, for the power rankings as always.
Oh, very welcome.
And just a reminder, you can support us by going over to patreon.com/tvdudes. Throw us $1 an episode. In exchange, we get to keep up with our streaming services, we get to keep up with our hosting costs, and you get bonus content each week. This week, we are finally talking about Bill and Ted Face the Music. Because we've been talking about Bill and Ted. I'm super excited to talk about this. I've watched it twice already. We also have our $20 showrunner level, which a few people have taken advantage of. And right now, on deck, EJ, I believe the originator of our showrunner content in a lot of ways, has Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just queued up and ready for us.
I don't even understand how it's still on.
However,
It's not anymore. It's done. It's over.
it's over, and I got there's one he gets to fire one less
Agents
bullet
of
at
Sword
me.
now.
Yeah.
Don't
And
you
it's
even
a
shut up?
time
You shut
travel
your mouth.
season for the last one.
No,
so-
Randy, we're going to do Agents of Hate. They're going to do a live-action Agents of Hate. It's going
Oh
to
my
run 5
God.
years.
Oh
we're going to
my
make
God,
you cover
that's-
every
oh.
episode of it.
God, the thought of a next wave live action. is
Next
the
wave
worst
live
thing.
action.
That's the worst thing I can possibly think of. So, we are going to watch that. I did talk to EJ, but we are waiting until it drops on Netflix, because right now you can only watch 3 episodes on Hulu because of ABC's dumb licensing
AMC
things.
style. Why don't we just burn off an episode and keep you from starting this show? Yeah.
And he wants us to watch the whole thing, which is unfortunate, because I was like, oh, I'll just watch these last 4 episodes. But
Yeah, Randy.
no.
Randy was like, "Oh, I'll only have to watch 3," and I was like, "Should you check with EJ about whether we should wait and watch all of it?" Randy was like, "Fuck."
Yeah,
I
damn
watched
it,
2
Les.
of them mid-season.
All right, so let us talk about our new business for the week, and let's start with The Vow.
Oh, yeah. So the only thing I knew about Nexium when the ad started running about this, besides it's the purple pill that stops heartburn, I think, if I remember watching my dad eat food correctly, is that Allison Mack got arrested a few years ago, and I read a little bit about like her being head groomer for a sex cult.
Those were the headlines.
And that was that's about all I knew.
Well,
And that's
the other thing was the branding it was like
Yes,
sex
and that
cult
that it was like
branding.
sex cult, like they branded them like for reals sex cult.
You want to talk about weird mixed feelings? It's seeing something like, oh, the hot girl from Smallville is like in some kind of sex
Everybody's crush.
Oh,
well,
it's a cult.
or you hated her.
Fuck. Yeah.
And the girls from like Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
and-
Oh, their bench was deep.
Like, so we all knew kind of the big reveal, at least in the first couple episodes of,
Oh, for sure.
this is a sex cult and things are going to go weird.
But I think it kind of functions like McMillions, where like I enter into that documentary knowing the central conceit is that the McMillions thing is rigged and that somebody stole a bunch of this, and I'm just eager to see like all of the details unfold. And so going into that first episode and watching it be power positive thinking, like
Yeah, it's like a corporate retreat, right?
Yeah, it was
Warner
like Tony
Earhart,
Robbins. I'm down.
or Tony Robbins, or any like, and that's what made it so gross in the first episode was, to a degree, they're spouting shit that works in other programs. Like, like they're spouting stuff that, I mean, if you filled out like one of the pieces of paper they fill out of like, and it was magic, I got to this deep thing in my core, and it's like 10 pages of the most deep questions you could honestly ask yourself. And I was like, man, any fucking person that did that much self-reflection is bound to figure something out. It's not this retreat.
Well,
you thought about yourself for a while.
I also think,
but then they play in all that sash bullshit and the no names. Like you can see the cult. You can see the cultness from the beginning of like, no, this is weird. 5 days. Like your opening bid for retreat is like 5 fucking days.
What a
well, and
commitment.
they groom celebrities, kind of like Scientology, to give themselves validity. And I think kind of their master, like, validating thing is that their founder, this head guy, Keith something or other, I forget the last name, has got, like, these world records for IQ scores. He's got, like, all of these accolades.
Supposedly.
Yeah,
Well,
that's got to be.
we haven't gotten to that episode
Like they
yet.
don't
He's a
verify
Doc
any
Antle,
of that
maybe.
in the first episode. Like they're rattling all this off, and then later when you meet him, he's like, they're like, "Are you a concert pianist?" Well, I wouldn't say that. I used to play several. Like he's always so self-effacing that it's like
Dana's tiny dancer.
you get every con artist, con movie thing ever is like red flag was going off in my head of like he's used wiggle words or they've used wiggle words to describe everything about him a little bit. Like
So that's one of the things I was going to say. This guy ran a cult of, like, basically had
It's still
all these
running.
women lining. Oh, yeah, still running. But he's in jail. But this guy ran a like, sex cult with Allison Mack and all these amazing... Like, he was having sex with multiple women, and they show him... And he is like the blandest Bill Gates type guy. I'm like, this is your
what if Stephen
charismatic
King
leader?
didn't write any books? We just saw Stephen King, and somebody was like, "That dude."
But the thing that's really creepy about this to me, this was super compelling, is that like I can see how the like 7 habits of successful people get drawn into this kind of thing. It's like, yeah, this is just a business seminar, and even the weird shit like the little tassels and well, not tassels but sashes and stuff.
Yeah.
That is not unlike what you'd get at a business retreat. I've run a business retreat when I was working at ACC Marketing, and it was all dumb shit like this. They want to give you like here's your dumb thing to make this feel like it's fun and not work, and it's such a weird slide from this into sex cult.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so many red flags right up from the beginning, and I feel one of the great things about documentaries like this is that hopefully viewers become a bit more skeptical when they hear about an organization that, like, hey, you go in for 5 days and you're going to have one of your big anxieties just solved like that. Like, oh, now I don't have any anxiety when I'm driving down the highway. I don't know how to find that again. I'm like, it's always preying on these insecurities of people and convincing them, like, through emotional manipulation that, hey, we're able to cure
call it
all
EM.
shit. Yeah, and I'm just like, man, I fucking hate how these cults always manage to prey on people that are like so good natured, and you see how everyone slides into this, and how it moved progressively into talking about like how busy they were, and then it was like no, they're purposely being funneled into being workaholics who are being controlled on all these levels. It's a very considered element that makes you an indentured servant. And even if it's not the sex cult, everyone else is already in a cult that is so damaging to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it preys on
personal growth instead of tiger cubs.
And it preys on
They're
people
working
not
the same hours.
Nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Like especially when you put that much time into it, and so you start
When
doing
you
these
watch
things to
that
convince
with
yourself.
with Mark and Bonnie, so when you said like they groom celebrities, like you can definitely see why they wouldn't just nakedly come for the dude that made What the Bleep Do We Know.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you tapped into a bunch of people that haven't heard of us, but who would fall for us like falling up a log.
Yeah.
And you could like why they would definitely go after that filmmaker. And then he gets into it and it's such a fucking puppy dog for Keith Raniere. It's just so up his ass. Is like, I finally found a friend. Yeah, just so needy, and like, oh man, you were the wrong person to fall into the orbit of someone who is. Keith Raniere has an actual genius level skill. It's reading people and manipulating the fuck out of them.
Yeah. He has charisma, and it's
that's
undeniable.
his skill. That's his skill. Running a room. That weirdo that can run a room.
Yeah.
And this guy just shouldn't have got near him, because listening to his wife try to present him data, like just fact after fact, and him like, I think you're just wrong, honey. I'm going to go talk to Keith about it. Like,
What's interesting about this show coming out right now, when we have an election, is this is kind of the problem with politics, is that people wrap their identity so much in politics that you try to present them normal facts, but if it's contrary to their identity, they have a harder time accepting it. And you see that with these characters where it's like, but no, I've just invested the last 10 years of my life into NXIVM. Like, I can't process what you're saying. Like, that makes no sense.
And if you ever felt like you got something good out of it, then you feel like a sucker later, or what? Like Grant said earlier, like you've got to. All these people have to have a way to walk around to the opposite belief now, because they can't just about face say I'm a sucker and was chumped, or I'm wrong and I'm in a cult.
Or I voted for a con man or anything like that.
This is deprogramming level shit.
Kyle put it very delicately, but this is what Trumpism is.
Yeah, 100%. The Republican Party not having a platform this year, but just decreeing that they were going to support Trump.
It's not Republicans so much as like you've said that you had these certain principles, you had these ideas, and now you've had to sacrifice almost every single principle that you stood for as a Republican to continue to back Trump. That is what a cult does to you.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah,
that's why this
back down from what your principles were.
That's why this show is coming out right now and didn't come out like 6 years ago when we first heard about this story. I think actually this uses a lot of footage from a documentary that came out in 2018. But still, I could totally see where like this message was intended for this moment.
So beyond the content, I did want to talk about that as a show, as a production. I was very. I mean, HBO knows what they're doing. This is another great one from them. But the amount of footage they've got, the way they cut it together, and the way they punch you in those last 5 minutes of like, wait, what's the next level? Tune in next time, and waiting until the end of the second episode to show us the brands. There's no way you're not coming back for episode 3.
That final image in the second episode of a character that we've seen. Yeah, go ahead, Cal.
Oh, no. You had to... I feel like the first episode, even though it wasn't as satisfying as the second one, you had to believe why people would get involved with this. Like, you had to believe the validity. We've talked about Vanguard. We haven't talked about Prefect, the Nancy something or other.
Yeah, we should say Vanguard is the name that everybody's required to call
Keith
Raniere.
The head guy. But then the, like, number two, come to find out she's got like all this experience and education in like hypnotism and things like that. And it makes you watch those videos in a totally different way. It kind of reminds you of that Dispatches from Elsewhere that we watched earlier this year.
Did you guys know who the Mark guy was before this? What the bleep do you know?
Yeah, I was working in a video store when that movie came out, and we just had people that would come in and like, hey, do you have this? Like, I think it was one of the first indie documentaries I've ever seen be like a runaway success like that.
Because they were talking about it, and I was like, I don't think I had heard about that, but I think it's fascinating. And like, what a misstep for Kyle Raniere. That like he brought in a guy who documented everything, and he said, "Go for it." And now that guy left with all of his documentation.
One thing I was gonna. This is a beautifully made documentary, but part of what makes it possible is the fact that they compulsively recorded everything, or at least allowed Mark to compulsively record everything, and not just him, Bonnie. There's a moment where she's walking down the street with Keith, and it's one of the times where he folds her back in, like he totally makes it her fault and folds her back in. But at the start of it, she doesn't just record it surreptitiously; she gets him to say his name and the fucking date. It's like where I was like, "This is you. You know what you're doing," and he's letting the brazenness of record it is crazy to me
because he's sure he's not going to lose them. He's like, what is it? Yeah. And also because of the whole, and I've read ahead a little bit, but there is a mutually assured destruction thing going on with all blackmail material they built into this thing. That'll be interesting when they get to that.
Oh, is that they tease it? It's Collateral.
They tease it. Yeah, Collateral.
Ooh,
yeah. Some of it's false confessions and all sorts of shit.
There's some crazy shit coming up. I'm super. I really like this. It does remind me. McMillions was good, but was not like. The sort of coercion and trafficking in this makes this a little harder to watch, a little sadder, but it's not quite as hard to watch as I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is about serial sex murderer. And so on that scale, I find this right there in the middle of like, oh, well, there's sex and there's sadness, but it's not a serial sex murderer who got away with things for decades.
Also, if you haven't seen McMillions yet, that is just like top-notch documentary TV this year. Like one of the best ones.
But I can't wait for the third of the vow. It's just
me too. I'm super into it.
Hooked. And there's a podcast as well about escaping, about getting out. A Canadian podcast about getting out of NXIVM, escaping NXIVM. Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah.
That I'm looking forward to checking out.
Wow. I feel I'm already a cult member for this show.
Yes.
All right. Well, everybody put your butts up to the Zoom screen. We're gonna get the branding done.
Yes.
All right. I'm here for this episode.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Wow.
Shut it, prefect.
Let's divert over and talk about another HBO show. Let's talk about Lovecraft Country, which we've been talking about every week since it started. I am 100% in love with the show.
I thought it was great. I mean, a 2-episode season. They found Dad, they dealt with the lodge, and then boom, we're wrapped. I've been complaining that these shows were too long, and this just did it. I was really surprised with the extra episode.
That's one thing I really liked about this episode. It is a standalone horror movie. Like, if you had not seen the previous episodes, there's some backstory stuff, especially the fact that our lead Letty basically died and came back, and she's kind of dealing with that. But a lot of this is basically a standalone haunted house episode.
It is now one of my favorite ghost haunted house things.
I was getting X-Files vibes from like.
I really enjoyed the standalone
Monster of the Week.
Grant, you have not been here to talk about it, so tell us your thoughts on Lovecraft Country so far.
The first episode was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I thought the second episode was a little bit of a clunky mess. It was a bit muddled in a lot of what it was trying to convey, and maybe it's going to dole that out over the rest of the season, as evidenced by the end of the third episode. But overall, I was just like kind of lost by what the cult was. It felt like they they really jumped a lot of beats really quickly with how heavy that one was. I wish they had doled it out a little more. And
I think we're going to see more of the Sons of Adam throughout the season. I think that's going to be the connective tissue.
Right. But
it would have felt better to me if it had been 2 and 3 at least to destroy the lodge.
It felt weird, and I find that this show is at its best and at its most tense when it is not dealing with the supernatural, when it's dealing with race and the horror of that in the 50s, versus when all of a sudden there's a bunch of million-eyed dogs or a Sons of Adam cult and force fields, and then it gets a little bit silly and it kind of undercuts the heavy weight of what else is going on in the show. That said, I thought that the performance by Journey Smollett in the 3rd episode was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Pretty much most of the episode was really good. There's a couple silly parts, baby head basketball players and whatever else is going on.
Space Jam.
That just kind of make me go,
He was a monster.
But overall, I thought it was after the pilot, like the strongest episode. I'm very invested in the characters and the world that they've built here, and I'm fascinated by their storytelling, even if it feels still a little bit disjointed between the realistic elements and the supernatural.
So I'm interested in seeing where the supernatural stuff comes in, as it feels like it's almost a spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. You know, just like in like Watchmen had a lot about the Tulsa Massacre and that kind of thing, but it was also about superheroes and that kind of stuff. And I feel like this is the same thing. We are getting a top-notch education in African American history, and the way we're getting everybody to watch it is there's also spooky ghosts.
Like, no, but look, multi-eyed dog.
Well,
And a bit with the dog.
The
And a bit with the
allegory
multi-eyed
is
dog.
all over the nose. It is right on the nose.
But seriously, like the most tense scenes I've seen in this show were the 25-mile-an-hour drive out of the Sunset Town.
Oh yeah,
down the highway
and into another Sunset County.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the car horns going on and the burning cross and breaking the windows, and then having to be in the police car. Like all of that is so
and
much
then the
more
ramification
tense.
of everybody moving out because you put a target on it. Like
Like
it almost makes it so that these characters are the ones equipped to do the X-Files bullshit, because the ghosts and stuff really are just just a ghost? Fuck yeah, I can deal with ghosts.
They're like, have you ever been in a diner that was burned down by white supremacists?
Right?
Fucking ghosts, who cares?
It's them fake ghosts in sheets that are shitty.
The scene where they moved the floor tile, what was that, episode 1?
Yeah.
That diner scene was solid.
Yeah. But the stuff with them, and this is, I've been listening to the Lovecraft Country radio podcast that HBO does, and they're talking about, like, the stuff with them putting the bricks and the noise pollution, like, that is 100% shit that was done. Like, this is all very real. And
the cops just always driving by with the knowing nods of, that's what you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, because that's a signal to them. It's like, we're not going to help you. You're on your own.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't expect this show to be a Monster of the Week anthology type, or not anthology, but a Monster of the Week series.
Yeah.
And it looks like they are, even though they've definitely got the Sons of Adam, like Grant said, at the end of the 3rd episode, they definitely seem to be tying that in each episode or doling that out slowly over the season. There was just a lot of setup, it seems like, in episode 2 to introduce us to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I, having not read the book, I kind of expected this to be one big story about this family, and I really thought we were going to look for Dad for 10 episodes.
Yep.
And it absolutely shocked me at the end of episode 2 to be like, fuck, we're done?
Yeah.
I mean, he's presumably going to come back, right? Isn't that what, like, the kids doing the Ouija board and George, the dad, was, like, talking to them through the Ouija board?
I don't know.
I didn't catch
The
that.
Uncle Dad. I don't think.
Eggs.
Yeah, well, it said it was George.
It said
but I
George is dead.
Oh, it said is dead?
It said George is dead. I think it was supposed to be something tormenting them.
Oh, I thought maybe it was George something or other, and then I was like,
I just thought it
is
was...
it that he's coming through and maybe
No,
he's going to make a return as a ghost?
It said George is dead because it is his daughter was in the room.
Because that actor, it was such a great character, especially with the also...
Courtney B. Vance has to come back.
With the hints that Courtney B. Vance or George was potentially actually his dad.
actually the real
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah, and I'm like,
But-
oh.
That shit was crazy.
Speaking of Easter eggs, though, the kid who is in the Ouija board thing, who was asking, "Is my trip going to be good?" and it says no. The kid's name is Emmett,
oh fuck.
and
Is it really?
it's the same time as Emmett Till. Yeah,
Oh wow, that's heavy.
wow.
yeah.
That
I hadn't
they're
caught
probably
it,
gonna do
and
that.
he is dressed like Emmett. There's a picture of Emmett Till.
Yeah,
dressed,
okay.
I mean, that is clearly a nod, and I'm like, holy shit, I did not catch
That's pretty heartbreaking now that I know.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are definitely the cast or the writers' room on this is pretty. I don't want to say diverse because diverse implies something else. It is very heavy on African American writers and people who are aware of all this shit and who learned it growing up, and as a result, we are getting these people who are unafraid to tell us these stories and go places like with Emmett Till and that kind of stuff. And I think that is what makes the show better than what could be a B grade horror show. Like it could have been a little exploitative, or it could have been just like kind of goofy horror. But I think that because of the grounding of the racial elements and the history, that elevates everything else. Now there is some legit scary stuff though. I mean, I thought the bit with Letty being under the covers and the ghost is like pulling the covers, that was creepy as fuck.
Her head creeping down right below. Yeah, the bed. Ugh.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pulling the sheets off and all that.
Yeah.
That was
The elevator. I like when the three dudes come in the house and
Yeah.
they get that
That-
comeuppance, because like at the very beginning it kind of hints at like, oh, three people mysteriously die, and you have whatever, the two lead characters and then the lady doing the witchcraft,
Yeah.
and you
yeah.
assume like
Chainsaw
it's gonna be them, but
Yeah.
instead it ends up being the three white guys that
Yeah.
like oh good, you want them to die.
And then later when the person asks Letty, like, do you know anything about your neighbors vanishing? And like, what? Like, no. And she really doesn't. Like, those
She has
kids
no
wandered
idea.
in while they were
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
And we still don't know where that tunnel. I mean, so there's still now a tunnel underneath the house that's just corpses.
that title
piled.
card
Yeah.
that says, the three people. It's so scary at the beginning, but then
Yeah.
once you realize that twist they were implying, it's like the relief in the third act
Right.
that you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what great ghosts to have in your house that they clean up the dead bodies afterwards and just like sweep
Yeah,
them down into
right?
the basement.
Oh,
yeah, that's nice. Just consider it.
You can't pay for hired help like that. That's
Actually,
That's
they
a
did that
good
movie, Sunshine Cleaning. Isn't that? They
Right.
cleaned dead bodies.
Right?
it's Amy Adams, so she came in and swept them up.
I did like the ending though when he goes to confront God, what's her name, the cultist girl,
The creepy blonde
the
chick,
blonde,
yeah.
yeah.
creepy blonde chick. I love that basically she used all of them to clean out this haunted house. That was like, this was a Sons of Adam thing that she was cleaning up, and she's clearly still going to use Atticus and Letty and those for her purposes. But the chilling whole awareness of her power when she's like, Atticus, you got to be smarter than that. You can't just kill a white woman.
Is she
That was brutal.
is she good or bad?
She's bad.
Yeah.
She's definitely
thinking-
bad.
I mean,
She doesn't seem to be as bad as her father in the first
But
episode
do
or
you
second
think she
episode.
orchestrated her father's death?
Yes, I think she
I
did.
think so.
yeah,
I'm getting
but
that vibe.
I wonder if she's ultimately going to be an ally of theirs, a la, Spike or
She's the Kylo Ren character.
yeah, any of these kind of bad guys that end up actually being the good ally or whatever. In the end,
I don't know. Maybe I feel like we're being set up to see her as this. She's likable because she steps forward to patriarchal traditions and that kind of stuff. But she still seems to be very much in for her own good.
I think she's going to end up liking Atticus and offering him a hand of like, hey, why don't you just come? Like, you don't have to die in my plan. You could join me. But it's just not going to be something he takes.
Yeah.
Well, I also
Like,
thought
I could see her being more gracious than her father. Like, she's less evil than the
Right.
generation before her, but I still think she's her own big bad.
watching Atticus put the gun up there, ready to kill her, told me something about that character. It's like, oh, he's got an edge I didn't know about. Like that was,
Yeah.
that's a pretty
He's been to war.
intense thing. Well, but not only that, he's so socially conscious. Like he knows like it's like she said, don't be dumb, don't kill a white woman. Like there was so much more involved in that than just being able to pull the trigger. And the
You
fact
should have
that
been like, "Do you know my haunted house? It'll clean it up."
Right?
it was an intense moment. I liked it.
Yeah, I also really appreciate the how they portrayed the romantic relationship between Atticus and Letty so far, with this kind of slow build up, this flirting, and then him having a misperception about her level of romantic experience, and just feeling he needed to push past his shyness and just like confront her, only to realize that like he was her first like intimate relationship, and like he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that like I actually had the balls to like go and approach you. I just think like how they've pieced together this relationship like continues to build on it like so much that it strengthens my interest and investment in the two of them as a duo, and I'm really appreciating that.
All right. Well, let's talk about our third leg of evil here.
I'll let you guys talk about this.
Okay, we will.
Well, I thought you watched all this, Grant. Come on.
So we're going to talk about Lucifer over on Netflix. This is season 5. This is the second Netflix season. Kyle and Les were talking this up in our text chat so much that I finally went through and binged season 4 and then 5.
Dang.
And
Are you happy you did? That's the biggest question, which I feel like you've chatted a bit because you love the cop shows.
Randy,
I don't.
Do you love cop propaganda?
I love propaganda. Yeah. No.
Well, come on. If I told you the devil came to Earth and the first thing he did was help the LAPD, that fucking tracks, right?
So here is the first thing I had to do. I had to get over the fact that this was not the comics. It is based on the comics, but the comics that were like the Season of the Mist Sandman was my favorite Sandman story arc, and that is where Lucifer gives up hell, and all the various gods come to him because they want to become the rulers of hell. And then there was a Lucifer solo series that was really good.
Yep. He and Mazikeen running the bar. Mike Carey's Lucifer is great.
It's
that was the same
good.
issue I had in season 1 and 2. Was it is so not the comic.
Yeah.
It is just a cop procedural.
A Fox cop procedural. There's a
Fox
difference.
cop procedural, and I really don't give a shit about Chloe Decker as a character.
And here's the other thing: it's not better than the comics. If you made it better, then I would be forgive. But it is notably worse than the comics. That said, once you get on board, if you can get yourself on board with, yes, the devil came to Los Angeles, and the first thing he did was start helping the LA police solve crimes. And that's a big ask.
Not the first thing he did, but he ran the nightclub for a little while.
Yeah.
He just got a crush on a random cop.
3 seasons kind of coax you into that ask. Like, they help you with the suspense. Because you got to remember, the Fox seasons, they're way more than 10 or 12 episodes. I think they might have been 20-episode runs.
They're full 20-something, 22-episode things, I think.
I would definitely not have watched 22 episodes of this as a season.
But the thing is...
And it becomes itself in 4 when Netflix takes it over.
They nail the Fox procedural. And especially without commercials, because that's the worst thing about the Fox, like the cliffhanger on commercials. Like, I think they're the worst network in terms of being manipulative right before the commercial. But in Netflix, like, that doesn't matter. So, like, watching these on a binge, like, they totally nailed that kind of procedure format.
So I think what wins me over here are a couple things. One is Tom Ellis is delightful. Like Tom Ellis, if you had cast him, if Tom Ellis was doing an HBO or a Starz version of Lucifer that was based on the Vertigo comics, I would be delighted.
Ooh, that would be better.
Makes the show.
But he's really good here. The woman playing Chloe Decker I also like, and actually I think all their characters are good.
It's Lauren Graham from Happy Town. I'm not Lauren Graham. Lauren. What is her name? Lauren German from Happy Town.
D.B. Woodside as Amenadiel the Angel.
Yes.
Rachel Harris getting to branch out from playing the shrill harpy that she usually is forced into playing and playing a more nuanced character. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Doctor's arc across the seasons when she goes from... I mean, when Lucifer first starts going to her, one of the conceits in the show is he never lies. And so at no point has he ever hidden the fact that he's the actual real devil. People just go, he gets a kick out of watching them contort themselves into whatever they've got to do to rationalize that he can't be like, it's a prolonged metaphor or something.
It's actually a pretty good message.
it's he's just upfront about it the whole time. So when he goes to her in the first season and just sits down in her, like, won't leave her psychiatry office and like, no, you're my therapist now. And it takes a little while to realize he's not delusional. Like, there's a whole thing of like, my patient's crazy.
With her in like episode 1?
Oh, yes.
So
yes, he gets her to violate her ethics and shit, like in the first episode, and then from that point forward,
the relationship is always predicated on the first thing he did with her is made her like break the code of ethics or whatever therapists have by sleeping with her right away. But then she just continues to like dole out the advice, and by the time that she finds out he's actually the devil, she has like a nervous breakdown. I don't think that was season 4. I think it was season 3.
That was before I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, when she actually finds out, like, it's a pretty like powerful moment, and it's crazy that they could go from like what could have easily been, you know, like the bimbo side character to like I think one of the best characters on the show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's great. Also, I have learned
Grant
from
had
watching...
a question. It looks like.
Oh yes, Grant. What is your question?
Sorry, I was just kind of curious because I didn't actually read the comic itself. Is he? From what I do recall vaguely of like Sandman and Lucifer, is that he was the devil for a time and then he retired from being the devil and just wanted to like walk around on the earth. Like, he's not still actively also the devil, right?
Well, he retired from running hell, but he's still the devil. I mean, he's still Lucifer.
Is
he's still the same angel that fell and everything. He's just not doing the duty of running hell.
Is he agent of chaos or is he agent of evil?
Neither. He's actually just kind of wants to live his life, and his life is like he's a hedonist. Is kind of what he is.
He does have
in the comics. He is just out for himself, basically.
He does have like a code, though, in the sense that if people are selfish or things like that, he can draw that out. Like, his superpower in the show is like, tell me what your desire is. So
he can
like
manipulate. Okay.
Yeah, everybody has to tell them their desire, and then he can do with that, you know, whatever. Whether it's like in a mission of guilt in a case, or like sometimes he just manipulates people to get what he wants.
And he very much, in the show at least, he very much enjoys this kind of braggart title of being the greatest sin punisher. Like that my job running hell of like, so when he decides he has a crush on the cop and decides he wants to help out the LAPD, it's because, like, well, I'll be perfect at it. I used to run hell, and you punish evildoers. And then he frequently throws people through windows and shit.
Are the cops good guys, then, in this show?
No, they're the LAPD. But yes.
No, like, seriously, are they portrayed as good, or is he portrayed
they actually, they work in the part of the LAPD that looks like an Apple store. You know, you may have seen it from, like, Michael Bay movies and stuff, where it's like everybody has glass cubicles. Designed
they
by,
avoid it by never
Swiss
having them be beat cops. It's always like solving an egregious murder.
Detective. Okay.
Yeah, they're detectives, but they did do an episode this season where they dealt with no, it was previous season where Menadil who is a black man, and he's having a child. He basically is like, he gets profiled by a cop and almost gets killed until his like cop buddy runs up to save him. And that's what spurs him to decide he's going to take his baby to go live in the Silver City instead of on Earth.
Yeah.
So they did touch on it, but it was like just once. They mostly it's like every cop tries to do that episode now of the, oh yeah, but cops aren't great with black people, but our cops are good.
What's the Silver
They did have
City?
an entire season where Superman from Smallville, Tom Welling, becomes the police chief. And there's a whole police corruption thing that they have to deal with, where they've got a serial killer in the ranks.
The Silver City is heaven. That's what they call heaven.
Oh, okay.
When
not Denver.
Almost
not Denver.
So almost all and I love the conceit that gets used a lot that angels are like ridiculously black and white thinking, like just lunatic dickheads.
Like they do not
it's used
have
a lot
free
now.
will. They have a modus operandi.
Yes, they have this thing they were created to do, and they're just obnoxious about it. And so, like, Lucifer is just this obnoxious one-note, like, emotional child. And Amendiel is similar but nicer, and but also wants to fight
for
everything,
everybody,
like,
but to a fault.
Yes, protector of everything, but wants to beat it all up. And then eventually, in this season, we get to meet Michael, who I love. He is played by Tom Ellis.
Michael.
Doing an
So
American
he's the
accent.
twin brother of Lucifer.
Love the
so you get to
accent.
watch Lucifer and Lucifer. Yeah, except that Michael has an American accent for no
Sure,
reason.
why not?
And a half gimpy wing, like he's got a broke wing.
Yeah.
But I love that Michael's thing. I would love to meet more angels as the show goes. There's one more season left because the Lucifer's an angel and his thing is drawing out what do you desire, and you've got to tell him. Michael clearly can do the same thing with what are you most scared of?
Yeah.
Like what do you fear? And
There's some
and so,
poor cherub whose thing like is, what's your favorite drink?
I just
Cherry
like if it's
soda.
like,
I'm
what
gonna
do you
get
want to
you a
have
cherry
for
soda.
dinner tonight?
flavor of Kit Kat do you like?
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
That's just one angel that's like, this sucks.
I hate
How many
these
licks
powers.
to the bottom of a Tootsie Pop?
So
This is the one thing I know.
one thing before we get into specifics of this season I want to mention is that I learned from watching procedurals that you always have to have a quirky crime tech. Usually she's got to be cute and odd and quirky. In Crossing Jordan, it was
She's
Catherine
awesome.
Hahn. In NCIS, it's that girl, is it Abby, played by Polly Perrette. And in this show, it is the Hispanic Kristen Milioti.
Dexter's
Play-
babysitter.
That's exactly who she is.
Playing
Holy
Ella
shit.
Lopez, Amy Garcia.
Scarlett Estevez.
I swear to God, I thought she was.
Oh, no, Ella Lopez. That's who it
I
is. Yes.
I thought she was Kristen Milioti at one point. I was like, wait a minute. She looks like her. She's acting. She's got that sort of same winning personality. But Amy Garcia playing that character, I love her, and I love that the credit on IMDb for her now says Ella Lopez / Tommy Stompanato because she plays Stompanato in one episode this season, and that's now her credit.
Yes. They're so getting into this season. They do a lot of fun stuff. Netflix taking this show over was wonderful, but they do that black and white noir episode. That's the devil telling the story of this ring, which is incredibly important later in the grander arc of the season to Maze. To Mazikeen, who's also a wonderful
and
character.
he's telling the story to Chloe's child, which is
But
one of the
he's
highlights.
telling it to a little kid.
Nailed the child casting on the show, and they've kept her for all
yeah.
the seasons.
Yeah, she's good.
Trixie's been great.
Yeah.
This was-
Scarlett Estevez.
The noir
But
episode
the
is
kid
super
keeps
fun.
asking, like, make it more gender balanced. Like,
Yes.
aren't there any women in this story? And so even they don't change the gender of any characters. They don't change the names of anybody. Nothing. They just
Yep.
have someone else play. Like,
Yeah.
suddenly it is a woman playing that role
Yeah.
for Tommy Stompanato, or similar. It's so great. It just gets weirder and weird. Like, I love seeing it done because it's a little jarring at first when you go, wait, what? And then you just stop giving a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
and it still works.
I do say the this season starts with Lucifer has gone back to hell. He had to become king again, and so we start with his like that. I guess he's a running character, the random thief. Who
Oh
like,
no, that
robbed
was
him.
just the
Was
very
that from season
beginning of
4?
episode 1. He was just a random.
That was a
guy.
callback to episode 1.
Oh,
yeah,
was
it?
the first
All right.
time that the devil tries to help with anything, like he appears on Earth, and there's a bank robbery, and this is the dipshit.
But this is the guy who tried to rob him at some point, right? Because season 4 had a recap, and like this guy tried to rob him, and he like
They've
gave
run
him
into
all
each
this
other
money.
since. Like,
Okay.
Amendiel freezes back when early on in the show. Amendiel still had powers. I think they reference it in this season that he can't freeze time anymore.
Yeah.
And then he eventually
He used to be
Mostly,
badass.
mostly.
But he could
yeah.
freeze time, and he stops. They do a flash style thing. He freezes time in the middle of a bank robbery, and they strip the dude naked and tie his shoes together. And it's that dude.
Okay. Okay.
And they leave him in a bank,
So this
standing there with a gun in his hand. And
So this season starts with that guy dead and in hell, and Lucifer basically going through and watching him doing his torment, and then he winds up using this guy in hell to solve his own murder to help the detective back on Earth. It's such a weird way to keep the cop dynamic in there, and I'm like, it kind of worked for me.
And it's basically just Lucifer wanting to voyeuristically walk through a wax museum of L.A.
Yeah.
Because it's just this dude's memories. Like, it's not. He keeps going a little too far and hitting like the Z sorting. Like, oh, there's no more memory back here. Shit.
Well, and
Yeah.
operationally, this episode was perfect to set up kind of the big season twist, which we get in the trailer, which is that Tom Welling is going to be playing both characters, both Lucifer
the way they dropped that at the end is wonderful.
and Michael. And yeah, the way they did it in this episode, it was masterful.
Not Tom Welling,
Then
Tom
there's-
Ellis, right?
Tom Ellis,
Tom
did I
Ellis,
say
yes.
that? Welling?
Yeah, you said Tom. You said Tom Welling.
That's the
Welling
Smallville
is
guy.
Cinnamon from
Yeah.
previous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smallville dude.
Sorry.
So the other two things that I'm sure everybody loved the Diablo episode.
The
Lieutenant
Diablo episode was the
shit.
best.
They do a full meta episode where they have a show within a show that's just terribly cheesy.
Was that cinnamon vape cartridge?
Oh my god, that's how I keep the pounds off.
And the detective is a stripper turned detective, and man, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love that episode.
So that was great.
It was also tying in. Chloe is like coming to grips with the fact. So God just put me here. I'm just something God made for you to do. And part of me was like, didn't he do that with all of us? But she's talking to the actress like, well, how do you feel about them just giving you lines and you have to like do whatever they say?
So that meta episode did something for the show. As silly and fun as it was, it did something for the show that Fox failed to do for 4 seasons. It made Chloe's reason for being on the show not just kind of click, but like, oh shit, you're the exact romantic foil for Tom Ellis's Lucifer. Your character is exactly who is needed on this show. I've never felt that way about her character in 4 seasons.
Yeah.
She was just always the cop love interest.
Yeah.
Cool, glad you're there. I like Lauren German enough. It's fine.
Well,
but now she's in the same boat. She's the only other person that understands why Lucifer rebelled, why he was so mad, why all his problems with God she gets.
Yeah.
Because it's the same bullshit. I'm just supposed to do whatever you say. I'm just made to do what your whims. No. And Lucifer rebelled. She wants to, like, it clicked for me in that episode of oh shit, that's why you're here. That's why this. I love that Netflix did that out of something that Fox didn't fuck up, but Fox canceled this show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Without a Netflix deal on the table. It was dead on the table for a while, and then they resuscitated it from a cold corpse. So when they ended this, they ran one last episode that was like a day out of time, like It's a Wonderful Life if Chloe never existed. And that was the end of the fucking series. And so taking that little thing they dropped kind of right at the end of, oh hey, God made Chloe just to make you happy, which they kind of threw out there like a grenade and then just walked off.
Yeah.
Netflix picked that up and did something that made that character work.
Yeah, because
in a way that
beginning,
like you had a writer's room go back and fix a writer's room.
In the beginning, Chloe actually changed. Like, she would be the love interest one episode. She'd be like the comic relief another. She'd be antagonistic one. Like, I feel like she just always kind of fit what the story needed to highlight Lucifer. But definitely in Netflix, like, well, actually towards the end of season 3, it solidified like the relationship. But definitely Netflix has ran with that, like you said.
So I gotta say,
and then what this meta episode did was great.
The thing I have the biggest trouble with here is they sometimes make their Lucifer way too human. And Tom Ellis does a game job of making it work, but like, I'm having a hard time with Lucifer's episode where he's jealous of a DJ. Like, that's ridiculous. I understand this is supposed to be Lucifer experiencing love for the first time with a human woman, and I'm like, he's had sex with literally millions of women. I'm having a hard time believing that Chloe is his one and only in such a way that suddenly he experiences jealousy for the first time, and it's over this douchebag DJ that, like, it is such a high school bullshit thing for the devil to be dealing with.
It feels like they can't find any other way to make his character funny sometimes than to revert him back to being like an emotional 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And it, because like you could tell it's like, oh well, we know how to work this.
Yeah.
And it undercuts any arc they've done in. It's like, man, you're on season 5 though.
It's a failure.
He's grown.
It's a failure of writing sometimes, I think, and it's a lot to ask for human writers to effectively write an immortal being who is supposed to embody the archetypes of rebellion and evil. And again, I get that that's a hard job, but fucking Neil Gaiman was up to it. And
Mike Carey was up to it.
Was up to it, and I hold them to that standard. And so I get annoyed at this show. As much as I enjoyed it, I would get annoyed. I'm like, well, what is this silly bullshit? What are we doing here? Why are we doing this?
It's part of why this show always tops out at, like, it's never going to feel like prestige television to me, and it is always going to feel like a USA Fox show a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm never going to feel bad about vacuuming during a Lucifer episode necessarily. Or run into the fridge. I don't have to pause it.
Yeah. And it was funny.
And it doesn't do subtlety. They don't do subtlety.
I was watching this, and there's a serial killer plot that goes on in the last 2 episodes, and I was like 10 minutes into the final episode, and they introduced a character who I was like, oh, I like this guy. He seems like a fun love interest. And I texted you guys, and I'm like, hey guys, this guy's the serial killer, right?
I did not respond, but in my head I was like,
a row of
"Fuck
laughter.
you, Randy."
Yeah, I couldn't help it. Yeah, especially because they spend an episode prior to that just hammering it home that the forensic tech or whatever the
Lopez.
Ella.
That she is like always picks the bad guy. Like, it's literally the only line her character has for like a whole episode is every time she walks on scene, then she looks at a dude and goes, "Oh, is that the worst guy here? I'm hot for him," and then walks off. And then the next episode, she's like, "You know what? I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to date a friendly guy and this nice guy, and then in 30 days, I'm going to get my nice guy chip." And it's going to be great. And like as soon as he sets the puppy dog eyes on you, you're like, he has blood on slides in a crawl space in his apartment. Like he definitely has Barbie fingers. Yeah, there's definitely cut off fingers painted different colors in his freezer.
Aw, man,
Get the fuck out.
just 2 days left till retirement, Les.
Right? It's exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. She could not have if she had walked around saying I'm too old for this shit.
And also the there's no stakes for them. Like Chloe's been kidnapped. I'm like, you're not gonna kill Chloe. Like, there's no stakes here. I'm like, you're not gonna kill Chloe. And so a lot of that stuff just kind of went past me. But we get to that.
Before we get to what I know you're going to talk about next. In terms of the comic book, if they were to, like, the supporting characters, besides, like, God and Amenadiel and people like that, are they in the comic?
Mazikeen, that's it.
Mazikine's
a very different character.
And Mazikine's a very different character, yeah.
Well, because part of...
She can't speak. She speaks in, like, a burnt mumble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And half her face is gone. There is one moment in the show where you see Mazikine's real face. Like, they did a nod earlier where, like, she's got half a gone face. But it's not like the comic. In the comic, she wears, like a Phantom of the Opera.
Don't get me wrong. I like bounty hunting Mazikeen, and she's a badass and she's fun, but she's not the same character.
Yeah.
No. It's like everything else in this show. The actor eventually wins you over on it or doesn't.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Could they pull Tom Ellis out of this and put him on a Showtime or on a CW show, or probably not CW, but like, could they put him in a more accurate portrayal of it because he is so good as this character?
Tom Ellis could have 100% played Lucifer the comics. That's one of my disappointments with the show. As much as I did enjoy it, is that, man, you guys found the right guy. Like, you could have done... Look at American Gods, which is much more of a piece with what Lucifer is in the comics. Because in Lucifer the comic, like, there's like the Japanese gods and demons. There's Odin is in it. Loki's in it. It is about sort of mythology and making Lucifer another mythology. And... look at what American Gods did and try to imagine Tom Ellis being a big part of that, and absolutely he could fit into that kind of thing.
There's a beautiful, like, Bartleby the Scrivener, like Lucifer's second rebellion is just quietly refusing to do this job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
And he's super nice about it. Like, just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it makes for one of the most kind of adult noir, not adult in the risque kind of sense, but just grown up noir, starting my new life, and people just won't leave me alone because of the amount of shit I've done in the past.
Right.
And so, like, people come to him and he ends up having to help them because he's Lucifer, and like, no matter whether he wants to run a piano bar or not, he has too much access to power to be left the fuck alone.
Right.
Yep.
And so yeah, it is disappointing that they took... I enjoyed the show Lucifer, but they took one of the smartest written portrayals of this character who has been done in all of history over and over and over. Like, the devil is the top recurring character.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite portrayals of him, and they made an incredibly fun show, but they didn't need this source material to do it.
Right.
They could have made any fucking thing into this Lucifer. He's a very open source character.
It's kind of like Constantine. It's kind of like the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie. It's a fun movie, but it's not Constantine.
Keanu Wizard. I'd have gone to see it if you just called it Keanu Wizard, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You did not have to burn this property down
exactly.
to do it.
That's the thing.
I watched the fuck out of Keanu Wizard.
Can we pay some lip service to the little spoiler zone at the end of the season? Because I think I was the first one to watch this, and I've been dying to talk to you guys about it.
So, yes, if people have not watched Lucifer, and if you're going to watch Lucifer, which there's probably a subset of people like that, we are going to spoil the finale of Season 5 of Lucifer.
And if you grew up watching TV like we all did, I'm sure, television shows frequently spoil the fuck out of themselves because we all watch credits and read. And so you'll be watching a TV show and it's like, and special guest star, blah, blah, blah. That's not a character on this show that I love. And you make it all the way to the end of the episode and you still haven't seen him.
Yep.
And then like, boom, God appears.
Did you catch
the end of fucking Lucifer?
Did you catch the credit? Because I did not see the credit.
I did.
I did
So
not
I was
see
waiting
it.
the whole episode for Dennis Hastert to show the fuck up.
Oh man, I'm so
then-
glad I didn't see the credit because I
Did
was.
you catch my?
I was,
Did you catch my early spoil? Because I actually texted you guys like a week before this, like, "Oh, I guess you are in good hands."
You did.
I
You
didn't
did.
catch- I didn't
Somebody
catch
else said that to me as well.
Watch it.
Ah, Kyle.
I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it.
That's so blatant.
Oh, my bad.
But yeah, that was the time slowing and Mazikeen and Michael taking up sides. Like there was some interesting stuff there, and then the big reveal of they're gonna do God. By the way, if they're gonna do God with as much subtlety as in Lucifer, we should just brace for disappointment now. But I'm sure it'll be fun.
It's going to be nuts. I mean, I enjoyed so much the multiple seasons of Chuck on Supernatural, so this is just going to be fun.
Yeah, and that bullet time sequence, I was like, this is like the same level as that Doctor Strange like time slowdown sequence, except they do a couple cool things, like when they push through the glass. And
The glass was great.
the glass just stays
throws
where
it
it's at
through.
because they're frozen in time. So it's not like
Yeah.
the glass is going to move.
It's where he pushes each fragment of glass is where it stops.
Yeah, it's
I really
real
enjoyed that
freaky
effect.
and kind of cool looking.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys have convinced me to watch a show that I would never have watched because it's not the comic, and I will definitely come back for season 6, which who knows when that'll happen.
Yeah.
I mean, just listening to you guys discuss this, I'm never going to watch this show.
But you should read the comics.
Yes, the comics are quite good.
I mean, I'm looking at a shelf full of comics here, and I still haven't read a lot of these.
All right, well, that brings us to a close of our Pure Evil episode. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Grant, for jumping back on, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, Randy, so much, the maestro.
Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our patrons. And a reminder that if you are a Patreon subscriber, you can go over and listen to our Bill and Ted's episodes. We're going to be talking about the new Face the Music on this week's Patreon.
We've been on the road to
not
Face the
heinous
Music.
Patreon.
We're finally getting there.
And until next week.
TV Dude's out!
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.